When a traditional brewer tries to enter the craft beer game, it normally goes one of two ways. No, that's not true. It always almost goes one way, and that's down. But the amount of investment Timothy Taylors have put into this makes me think maybe, just maybe, they've done something right. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, that's right, today we're taking a look at Timothy Taylor's Hopical Storm. If you've seen this advertised a lot, then, well, me too, because it's just everywhere at the minute. It seems to be on the font at every kind of mainstream pub or bar, and it's all over my socials to the point where I went, you know what, I need to find out now, is it actually any good? Thankfully though, the good people at Morrison's are now stocking this beer, which means I didn't have to waste a whole pint on it in a pub at a who knows what it costs. It was on their kind of 4 for 3 offer, so I don't know what the exact cost was in the end, but it wasn't particularly expensive. They've lined it up on the shelf next to all the Brewdog beers. I don't know, well, I imagine that was by request, because it seems a little bit of an odd place to put it, given that there's craft stuff further away than that. It's between two different Brewdog beers. So yeah, they really are going hard on the marketing for this. It is described as a pale, a striking triple hopped pale ale. It's 4% on the nose, from Timothy Taylor's, the fairly acclaimed Yorkshire trad brewer. I mean, I think they're still relatively well regarded. I've certainly had a few trad pints from them in the last 6 weeks that have been not bad. But you know, it should be pretty decent. Interestingly, I didn't want to read any of the taste notes, but on the back it does say for the perfect pour between 6 and 8 degrees, which, well, is perfect because I think this came out of my fridge at about 6 and it's been sat on the side for about 20 minutes now. So yeah, it should be pretty much spot on. Before we crack it open, here is a quick look at the can. Needless to say, it is striking. It's like a proper, they've gone all out on the marketing for this. They've kept the TRAD logo, which is interesting, and I quite like, to be honest. But otherwise, I mean, that font, is that not Brewdog's font? I mean, it's absolutely, it may be not identical, but it's very, very similar. Very striking orange can design. Heaps of info there, as you'd expect. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt, though. I'm going to break out my favourite glass, which is this stemmed Allegra, just to see, you know, this is reserved for the best beers, to be honest, for the more indulgent, more, I guess, concerned and considered options. But, you know, today we're going to use it to find out, really, whether Timothy Taylors have managed to nail a craft pale ale. So let's get it open. Very full can, bit lively. Okay. Does hold a pint. This glass bit was a bit lively. It's not quite all in there yet, but we'll rectify that once the head dissipates. A few notes on it visually, though. I mean, it's gold. It is properly golden. It looks, actually, now I don't know if my studio lighting is playing a few tricks on me, but just look at the colour on that. If you can tell, I'll try and hold it kind of away from me, kind of a neutral point up there. It's got kind of the golden hue of, well, a golden ale, a trad ale, if you like. Of course, I mean, we can start splitting hairs. To be honest, Sierra Nevada doesn't look a million miles away from that, but that's the first kind of impression. It does have this slightly richer coloration to it, which I'd associate with more trad beers for some reason. Maybe it's just a malt profile choice, but that would suggest that there's a good amount of malt in it, and also that they might not have been shy from using slightly darker and richer malts at times, which for me personally might actually mean this ends up all right, but we'll see. Right then, let's top this up and then we can talk all about aromas. So, is there any haze to this at all? Nah, not a bit. Okay then, I mean, there's still quite a bit of foam on there, but it smells like a hoppy pale. I tell you what though, and I do want to let that head go down a bit more before I can really, really judge this, but maybe it's psychosomatic because I talked about the colour of it leading me to think there might be a bit of a richer malt profile compared to a lot of generic supermarket craft beers, which this is. That aroma instantly goes light, floral, citrus, and then almost immediately into like this slightly bready malt. Actually, it may even be a step sweeter than that, and mixed in with that citrusy lemon from the hop, it almost smells a bit like, well, it's giving off lemon sponge cake vibes, which, well, I don't dislike, let's put it that way. That sounds like a recipe for, well, either success or absolute failure, so I guess we'll find out now. The head has subsided and it's still going. It has a really, really rich malt sweet thing going on, which for me personally is a massive win. But now we need to find out how that comes across in the taste. So let's give it a go, shall we? Cheers. Oh, why do they do this to me? Why? Right, so second sip, just for clarification. That malt is still there. It's not as dominant on the palate as it was on the aroma, but it's still there. The hop, maybe a bit more prominent, but the hop value is poor. And I mean, pretty damn poor. It's just, I guess, thin on depth and just high on kind of peak flavours, if that makes sense. It's just really quite aggressively citric. It's really quite, I go as far as to say, unnecessarily floral. It's not actually a heavily hot beer, and I've certainly enjoyed beers with much more of those type of values in the past, but this just isn't mellowing it out or balancing it with anything else. The malt helps a bit, but it's not quite enough to really, I don't know, it's I mean, my suspicion is that there's citra in this because it's got that real slightly clingy, cloying, almost unnecessarily bitter, that kind of, well, it tastes like cat pee smells, let's put it that way. To me anyway. I know a lot of people love it, but for me, I've never got on with it, as many of you all know. But in this, again, it's not working. Thankfully, there are some other hops in there. I can't pick them out because they're a little bit, to be honest, they're faded, they're jaded, they're a little bit disinterested. Have they managed to make a good craft pale? Absolutely not. But that probably wasn't the intention in the first place. Their intention with this really is to make some money, of course. That is the job of any business. And Timothy Taylor's has probably seen a bit of a downturn as people start turning to some more kind of craft orientated options away from trad ales in the past kind of decade. And this is probably a very late attempt, let's be honest, to jump on the highly hopped pale ale brigade. I say late attempt because in recent weeks I've had conversations with loads of people who just said, you know what, hoppy pales and stuff, I'm done, I'm bored, I'm not interested anymore. Truthfully, I can't really give you a subjective opinion on that because I've been done with them ever since they came out. I've never really gelled with any of them so much, with the exception of a key few, Sierra Nevada, and probably just a couple of local ones. There's not a lot else I get really excited for when I see it, you know, on keg or cask anywhere. So it does feel a bit late to the game, and we then need to ask, does that matter? And actually, I think probably not, because when I say late to the game, those people I'm talking to and the people, you know, about their beer preferences, their beer, you know, what they've been into, have probably been really into beer for some time. What this is actually trying to do, I think, is try and just grab away a few of those people who are leaning towards the Brewdog Planet Pale or the, I guess, Northern Monk Heathen in the supermarket. Although, to be honest, I don't think it's really comparable with that Northern Monk beer. But, you know, any of the really generic stuff, actually, tell a lie, scrap the Northern Monk reference because it's wrong. You know, your basic Brewdog beers, your basic Beavertown, Camden Pale, that sort of stuff that's pretty much on any bar you ever go into these days. It's trying to take on a bit of that market, and as far as they're concerned, does it work? Well, to be honest, it's probably sat right in the middle for me. I don't want to drink any of them. There's certainly some I would rather less have than this. That's some bad grammar there, Tom. And there's some that I'd certainly enjoy more than this one. But overall, I think it's fair to say it is a subpar beer, but I strongly suspect the inner beer geek in all of us is probably not the target market, and it'll probably stick around for some time. Marketing is everything, as they say, and they're doing a really good job about it, so I imagine it's selling by the, well, by the barrel at this point, quite literally. And yeah, it's fine, it's okay. Well, it's not, it's poor, but it's just not, it's not good. It's not good. It's not offensive necessarily all the way through, but it's just not good. Right then, I've been waffling on for a really long time now. I will give you an immensely quick top to bottom taste test so you can try and understand exactly what this beer is all about. So initially, sweet, citric, lemon, right on the front of the tongue. Not unpleasant, pretty mild carbonation actually. I mean, pales aren't meant to be properly fizzy, but I thought with it being a mass market product, it might be a little bit more zesty, a little bit more spritzy. Mid-phase, that malt comes in. It's actually quite pleasant. It's very washy, it's watery though. Well, you can see it in the glass. That is a splashy beer. There's no thickness to it, there's no body to it really. It's not an unpleasant flavour, it's just there, I guess. Think, you know, cheap to mid-tier lager territory on the malt, and then back end's really clean. Swallow it, and then all of a sudden you get those kind of just heavily acidic, slightly, well, to be honest, I describe it as all the bits of kind of, you know, lemon, lime, grapefruit that you don't necessarily like. You often quite put up with something that's lemon heavy or grapefruit heavy, because ultimately there is kind of intense, kind of almost astringent bitterness in there, but it's balanced by the nice sweet juiciness. In this, it's not really balanced, and you're just kind of left with this kind of slightly clacky, well, wave of disappointment. There has been a Hopical storm, but unfortunately the storm found no decent hop profile on the way. So there you go. Honestly, I wouldn't bother with it. If you're sat at a pinch and your options are only, you know, some Brewdog beer and Camden Town and Beavertown, you've got as much chance of enjoying this one as any of those others, so go for it. But otherwise, you can leave it on the supermarket shelf because there's plenty of better stuff on there right now, and that's what I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.